The Strokes had precipitated a resurgence in the public's taste for swaggering white boys with guitars, and Franz Ferdinand had taken the template to Radio 1 and the mainstream press, but the Arctic Monkeys were the first band since Brit Pop to set a new agenda and usher in a new age where alternative became popular. The Arctic Monkeys were being described as the heirs to Oasis' mantle as the nation's biggest unifying pop group, and were making it seem perfectly natural for both Channel 4 News and The Sun to be getting to grips with this phenomenon. Top of the Pops and CD UK were desperate to get the boys to appear, but they stayed true to their ideals. Released on the 16th of January 2006, the second single, When the Sun Goes Down, was greeted with generous praise and also reached the top of the singles chart. A grim tale about girls who end up plying trade on the streets. She don't do major credit cards, I doubt she does receipts. This song slightly lacks the instant killer punch of its predecessor, but reveals its charms with each listen. There was no doubt that the Arctic Monkeys had delivered a call to arms in the form of their sublime debut album, which would generate acres of press throughout 2006.
I don't know, it's like the good lyrics are going to be a bit different because, you know, moving on, but I mean, I still want to kind of, I'm still into like wordplay and stuff like that. I'm trying to, because I mean, I like to think that what we've done so far is not only is like accurate about the observations or whatever, but it's quite articulated quite well. So obviously try and keep that theme up.
The group's provocative album title, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, was actually a direct quotation from the classic British kitchen sink film Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. Directed by Carol Rise and boasting a screenplay by the prolific chronicler of Nottingham's working class, Alan Sillitoe, this box office smash of the 60s British New Wave starred Albert Finney in the lead role, as an abrasive factory worker lashing out at the desolate horizons to which he'd been bred by parents dead from the neck up. The Arctic Monkeys belonged to a lineage of bruised authenticity that encompassed the 1960s angry young man descent of British New Wave cinema, the works of Ken Loach and Alan Bleasdale, and the arch ruminations of Jarvis Cocker and Morrissey. With their scowling tales of life as it is for lumpen working-class males, they spoke eloquently to the man in the pub who felt awkward listening to art rock. In this sense, they may have used the same tools as Franz Ferdinand, but they were coming from a completely different sensibility to them, eschewing the art school posture for an altogether more prosaic and grittier agenda. The album wasn't a product of the same 1980s canon of post-punk independence that inspired Franz Ferdinand, Orange Juice and their ilk. Instead, it was derived from a brasher tradition that stretched from The Who through to The Jam and Oasis. Its alarming commercial success represented the apotheosis of a slow, gradual process that began with the Strokes and the White Stripes colonising mainstream pop radio, continued with Franz Ferdinand enjoying a #2 single success, and consolidated with the death of reality pop and the emergence of Bloc Party and the Kaiser Chiefs. The record was a Conor McNicholas wet dream made flesh. Whatever People Say is an explosive, instantly memorable debut, recalling the hallucinatory insouciance of the first Stone Roses album. Its dizzying energy evokes the spirit of the Jam's finest moments. You can hear it in the way the roaring guitars are performed with a vicious flick of the wrist, and in the ferocious headlong punk dashes of the more intense tracks such as You Probably Couldn't See or From the Ritz to the Rubble. There is no excess or indulgence on display here. Everything you hear on the record is necessary. It pulls no punches from the opening chord. A View for the Afternoon is an incandescent starter, all pounding drums and a thuggish electric guitar roar. Its first declamatory line, Anticipation Has a Habit to Set You Up for Disappointment, sets the tone perfectly for what follows. In this sense, it ranks up there with Dostoevsky's I am ill, I am full of spleen and repellent, from Notes from Underground in the annals of subterranean literature. This is followed by the swift deployment of I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor and Fake Tales of San Francisco. The former still sounds amazingly impressive, a 3-minute slot of nightcrawler frenzy that starts in chaos and stabilises as Turner emotes about hope, loss and lust. Lumpen, Callan youth is the milieu and the subject is small-town drinking and japery, all delivered with a sardonic sneer of belligerent menace by Turner. Fake Tales of San Francisco is a witty, self-aware clarion call for bands that speak to them about their lives. It's a glorious, vituperative swipe at the bandwagon-jumping rock-and-roll clones that came along on the back of the garage rock explosion of 2002. It contains perhaps the album's defining couplet, "Yeah, I'd like to tell you all my problems. You're not from New York City, you're from Rotherham." Mind you, the album is peppered with memorable, seemingly off-the-cuff aphorisms and witticisms, such as, well, oh, they only wear classic Reeboks or knackered Converse or tracky bottoms tucked into socks. Or try this, I fancy you, you're a Topshop princess, a rock star too. Turner's mercurial way with words, his keenly observed vignettes of bored text messaging teens and drunk lads, exhibit a novelistic gaze worthy of Mike Skinner from the Streets, Morrissey's work in The Smiths, and Raymond Carver's intensely beautiful short stories. On songs like the wonderfully colloquial Mardy Bum, Riot Van and Red Lights Indicate Doors Are Secure, the group approached the territory explored in kitchen sink dramas like The Loneliness of the Long-Distance Runner and A Kind of Loving. Riot Van distills a Weller-like grasp of angry young man poetics and adds a deft touch of Town Called Malice in lines like "We got a chase last night from men with truncheons dressed in hats." This Lads' Night Out sketch is drawn with sensitivity and urgency from the viewpoint of an unreconstructed prole. The hormonal Still Take You Home uncovers a fumbling narrator in search of the meaning of it all, but the standout piece is A Certain Romance, which ostensibly is one long sigh about having to live amongst chavs, but draws you in with a cinematic portrait of life on the margins. Neither condescending nor superior, it finds the band swooning between bloody-knuckled and tender, a neat poetic exposition of teenage inertia, existential drift and alienation. This song makes a strong connection between boredom and antisocial behaviour. It is both state of generation address and profound character study, both edgy and charming, oddly affecting and shrewd. An underrated presence throughout this record is that of unsung producer Jim Abris, who gets the best out of his charges at every turn. He employs a Nirvana-style set of harsh, soft dynamics to create a raunchy, guttural punk attack that is riff-heavy and brashly delivered. Despite the compelling axe pyrotechnics and beat group urgency, there can be no doubt that the most significant and interesting feature of the album is the quality of the lyrics. The hard-scrabble narratives ring an accessible poetry from the everyday, the minutiae of ordinary lives. Through articulating the dissatisfaction of every man or spinning deft stories of quotidian neurosis, whether it be arguments with nightclub bouncers, run-ins with police or japes with mates at school, the Arctic Monkeys paint vivid, colourful, diary-like portraits of small-town suburban life in all its claustrophobic, messy glory. It's this quality that places them in a similar context to that of other great chroniclers of humdrum Britain, namely the Streets, the Specials, the Smiths, the Jam and Pulp. This landmark recording evokes the beatific charisma and swagger of the Stone Roses debut, seemingly stumbling upon a perfect blueprint for success. It boasts pristine hooks, sympathetic production and a lyrical detail worthy of the Smiths' Hatful of Hollow, the Jam's All Mod Cons, and If Nobody Speaks of Remarkable Things by John McGregor.
when we first started out, oh yeah, because you just didn't, you don't want to, you know, it sounds that writing songs seems like a bit of a, you know what I mean, a bit flowery, isn't it? But yeah, no, musically, like new stuff. I mean, we were trying to kind of push on with rhythms and stuff and do different kind of like different rhythms and just keep it interesting. Cause I mean, but you can't really get Elders, our drummer, to just, you know, drum pretty straight. He's not that kind of guy.
The massive success of their debut album created a unique situation on the Shockwave's NME Awards tour, whereby the Arctic Monkeys were perceived to be the main attraction, not the headlining act Maximo Park. Also on tour, which took in Glasgow, London, Dublin, Manchester, Cardiff, Edinburgh and Sheffield, were Mystery Jets and We Are Scientists. But the crowds were there to see the creators of the all-time fastest-selling debut album in the flesh. The group's refusal to attend the 2006 Brit Award ceremony in February 2006 was viewed as a snub to the inanity of television, but in truth they already had prior commitments to the NME tour. As it transpired, the Arctic Monkeys enjoyed the best of both worlds, triumphing at both award ceremonies. At the Brits, they took the award for Best British Breakthrough Act and sent We Are Scientists lead singer Keith Murray to accept the gong on their behalf, confusing the audience by referring to him as a mystery fifth member in their recorded acceptance speech. At the NME Awards, also in February, the guys made history by becoming the first band to win in both the Best New Band and Best British Band categories in the 15 years of the awards. They also romped home in the Best Track category for I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. Turner was nominated for Hero of the Year, while the guys came third in the Best Live Band section. They were unable to perform at the awards because their equipment was unavailable, but they got up on stage to accept their prizes with Keith Murray and saluted Ian Brown's victory in the Godlike Genius category.